What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bingetown TV. This is Brian here with my co-hosts, producer Dave and Paul, and today we are going to be continuing our coverage of Amazon Prime's The Boys Season 4. This is going to be Episode 5, entitled Beware the Jabberwock, My Son. And as I've been doing, a little bit of housekeeping. If you are listening to us on our The Boys feed, go on over to our Bingetown TV main feed. There you can find pretty much all of the shows that we cover. Currently, we are also covering House of the Dragon, and we already have our sights set later in June. We're actually already 3 weeks into June, but The Bear Season 3 is coming out, and we're going to be covering that as well. June is a great month for TV, so you can find all of our coverage over on our Bingetown TV main feed, or you can go on over to bingetowntv.com, but it's 2024. You guys know how the internet works. You can find everything there at bingetowntv.com. And like I've said, we got a flourishing Discord community that we would love for you to be a part of. We throw our theories in there. We got a bunch of other fans of the show talking The Boys and a bunch of other shows that we covered. So if you want to be part of the community, join us over on Discord. But let's get into this episode 5 of season 4. And I mean, the hits just keep on coming. I think the main plot line of this episode at the farm, whatever you want to call it, was just so cool, seeing all of the characters in one place together, kind of tentatively working together. It was just awesome to see, and we'll get into that for sure. We get a little bit of closure with Hughie's dad, which was nice and painful to watch, if I'm being honest, and then just a chef's kiss Vault 52 Expo that was most definitely poking fun at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is just incredible to see the boys do. I thought this was a fun episode. I'm not sure if it topped episode 4 because of the Homelander stuff, and episode 4 was just incredible. But another strong showing from the boys as we are about at the midway point of the past the midway point of the season. I enjoyed it. Guys, what are we thinking?
It was really, really good. Like you said, just so many characters coming into play for this one. A little bit of everybody. Getting back to Edgar, I mean, or Stan Edgar, he's just so cool. So it was weird seeing Newman and the crew, the boys together for me, just because their number one enemy and trying to kill her. So it's just weird to see them talking and being casual. But yeah, big Ryan episode 2, maybe a little steered in the wrong direction. I was like, oh wow, look at Homelander being a good dad, and then immediately I was like, wow, look at him just being a terrible dad person. So it was a really, really good episode. Loved it, and excited to talk about it. A little bit of Godolkin too.
Yeah, Homelander definitely had us in the first half with us thinking that he might potentially be a good father, but quickly flips the script on that. But yeah, another solid show. Solid episode. I can't complain at all, really. I mean, every episode with the boys is just money. Like you guys were saying, it was great seeing Stan again. We knew that was going to have to come back into play at some point. It was great seeing him this early on, and seeing him with the boys was definitely an interesting take that we haven't really seen yet before. So, and I felt like I was getting jump scared left and right this episode. I hated it, but I loved it at the same time.
Yeah.
I felt like I was just clenching whatever I could at any moment, that it was just no sound in the background, no music. And I'm just sitting there like, something's going to pop out here. I know it is. And I love it though. I really do.
Well, I got to toot my own horn because it was on my wish list to see Edgar working with the boys. And I feel like this is as close as we're going to get to that in this episode. So checked off one of my wish list items. But I already kind of described the 3 plot lines that we had at play. Obviously, the boys, Edgar and Newman at the farm, I would say is our main plot. So we're probably going to tackle that last. And why don't we get started with this Hughie's dad storyline? Because there are a couple scenes that are quick, and I mean, it culminates in his ultimate demise, but it takes us a while to get there. It's dragged out, and it's very, well, it's sad to see, Hughie's going through it, But last episode we ended with, and we get confirmation that Hughie's mom did indeed slip the dad the compound V. So it was the mom that did it. And we start out episode 5. His dad is doing fine. Oh, are you sure I was even in a coma? All of that stuff. I didn't know if it was going to turn as quickly as it did, but as we know, this is The Boys. That was not going to last. It was not going to have a happy ending. What were you guys thinking of just the reveal that it was the mom and that the dad was feeling fine?
Number one takeaway is Huey had a cat named Jar Jar, as in Jar Jar Binks, I assume, which is amazing. And Huey's dad is Simon Pegg was great. He was just back and forth, like switching to like 3 different mindsets in like one scene. So he was just great to have around, and I'm sure he's hard to get, so that's why we didn't have a whole bunch of them. And he was only in, pretty much one episode here, but it kind of wraps up a storyline for Huey. Well, I guess not wrapped up because we still open ended with what's going to happen with his mom going forward, what their relationship's going to be like. Speaking of, real quick, want to pull back a little bit of the shade we were throwing at the mom last episode. Turns out she was trying to reach out all those years, and Huey's dad was not allowing her to come back into Huey's life. So we were like, oh, she didn't try anything and then try to act casual. So just want to, put some respect on where it was due. We dunked on her a little bit, like we were saying, but
I'm still gonna dunk on her.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, this is all her fault, right?
I'm still not crazy about her as a character. I mean, again, the expectations of what people were theorizing were kind of manifesting pretty hard in my head. So I was expecting a kind of big reveal with the mom, and she kind of comes in and doesn't make much of an impression. And here we see her decision making cost Huey the relationship and like just cost him his father. And I get her intentions were good, but Huey is an adult and he made the decision, yes, to bring the V, but at the same time, make the decision not to use it. And of course, she doesn't know what Huey's gone through with the girlfriend and just being a part of the boys. But you got to trust his adult decision making to know that using that was not the right idea. And the fact that he put it back into the jacket, I think she should have doubled down on his decision to not give it to the father. I get that she also wanted to save Huey's dad, and the conversation they had was very touching about how I didn't want you to lose another parent. But it leads to what happens in the boys universe, which is just death and destruction everywhere. So still not too crazy on the mom, but like Paul had mentioned, now that the father is out of their lives, it'll be interesting to see how the dynamic between them develops going forward. I'm still very curious to see how that goes.
One thing you said real quick, Dave, I think you said that she cost Huey his father. Well, I mean, he was going to die anyway. They were basically pulling the plug.
Yeah, I guess
so they didn't
you're
cost
right.
it. She added a
Sorry.
horrendous
ending.
Ending and goodbye to him. Now he's going to picture that, I'm sure, at the end. But either way, not too happy about it either.
I still don't 100% put it on the mom, because Huey brought it into the room and then made the last second pullback.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's completely 50-50 shared responsibility. Huey didn't. He got over it very quickly. Like, Mom, what are you doing? She explained and was like, okay, I get it. I had the same idea. I brought it 99% of the way. So the one thing I did love that his mom did, gives him her old engagement ring, and he's like, oh, I don't know if me and Annie. She's like, dude, are you an idiot? Lock that shit down now, because that's what we've all been thinking since they got together.
I also do want to say I like the insight that we got into Huey's dad's decision on why he gave the power of attorney to the mom and not Huey. I think that is really going to impact Huey's character going forward and how he interacts with the boys and maybe Soups going forward. I think this mindset that he's now going to have going forward is definitely going to change him as a character. I don't know for the better or for the worse, but I do think that this will loom over him in a way that will affect him going forward.
Could be foreshadowing that he shouldn't cling on to one of his the boys when that time
That's
comes,
what I'm
whether
thinking.
it be
Yeah.
Butcher or people are speculating Frenchie might, it might become his time at the end of this
Yeah.
season. So I think that's a good call, Dave.
Mhm.
But the first scene that we get with the dad when he's feeling fine, the mom walks out of the room and it's great foreshadowing. Just, oh, where did your mom go? She just went to the bathroom. You remember. Next scene, we catch up. He thinks Hughie's 11 again, clearly just not in the right state of mind. And then I think the next scene we get, he has gone missing from the room. And that's where we see him standing over a dead body, holding a heart. It's just, things have gone downhill very, very quickly, as they only can when we're in the boys universe. His power is, what is her name from X-Men? I'm thinking Cat, but I don't think it's Cat. He can run through walls essentially and make himself
Phase.
transparent. Phase,
Yeah.
thank you. There you
He
go.
can phase. Yeah, what is it called? It's in Danny Phantom's theme song.
Walk through walls, disappear and fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. But I thought this was a good ending in terms of what we were talking about last episode. I think we were theorizing. Well, actually, no, I'm confusing this with Butcher because I had theorized that maybe Butcher's tumor was going to get the V, but here we actually see the V causing heavier repercussions to a not healthy patient. So in this case, we see Hughie's dad's memory start to regress a little bit. And
Right.
obviously, I think that has something to do, that's a direct correlation to the fact that he was in a coma. Maybe some kind of the head injury was causing the V to regress his mind. But man, that scene just hits so hard. I think Jack Quaid's acting too here was just incredible. I was getting teared up. It was so emotional. And the fact that he was able to finally tell his dad that he was the hero to Hughie all of his life and not just like Tech Knight or all these people that he worshipped growing up. It was always the dad. Just like you said at the top, B-Toms, it's a very sad and tragic ending to Hughie's dad, but I think for the story of the boys as a whole, it's super nice. And it was a great moment between these two characters that I wish Hughie's dad could have stayed around. And, Simon Pegg, like you guys were saying, is just such a great actor. And he was very funny throughout the whole series. But this is a moment, I think, for Hughie's character that will bring a lot of intrigue going forward.
He was a movie buff, and his last words were Tom Hanks. So
Yeah.
only fit, very poetic. That whole scene was amazing at the very end. Let's go to Paris, and he kept it all together. And then after his dad died, he loses it. It was great. Loved the acting. Like you said, great scene, but terrible event, terrible circumstances to make it happen. It's interesting. Do you think that the father's powers being able to phase through walls is any what's similar to Hughie's teleportation?
So
And if
Alki,
the bloodline means anything?
Thinking the same thing. Yeah.
So Alki did bring that up. At first, he was like, "Isn't that like identical to Hughie's power?" And I was like, "No, I mean Hughie teleports." But then I was like, they are related. I mean, teleporting and you can end up one place, phasing through walls. You can just it's a quick exit, So I think there probably is a correlation between their powers.
And from Godolkin or from Gen V, oh my
Polarity.
gosh. Yes, I was going to say polarity,
Okay,
that gets passed down. So, and, Ryan and Homelander seems very similar. So I guess,
And I do need to step in and make the distinction. Polarity was not passed down, but the sun would have the same
he would be
effect
affected
of
by
Compound V. Ryan is the only one where the power was actually passed down through birth.
Yes.
Right.
No, we're saying the same thing. I think there is a genetic component.
Mm-hmm. So just cool that they picked that power. They didn't pick a random one. It was gross as hell when he phased back into physical form in the patient. That was just
oh my god.
It almost seems like they're going a step too far, but at the same time, it was what happened. It was just insane to watch.
Of course, the patient hitting on a nurse too.
And things are going so well.
Yeah.
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 That was a very The Boys scene. I agree. But, this was, I think Hughie is going to grow from this experience, but even in the wake of this very climactic experience, I can't think of a better word, his mom's like freaking out and she's like, how are you so cool and calm? He's like, honestly, this isn't the first time I've been through this kind of situation. And even when his dad does calm down and they know that they have to put him down, he's like, oh yeah, my French friend taught me how to make this cocktail. Like, I've learned a lot about chemicals. So all of that is to say Hughie is a very different man than he was in season 1. Dweeby, being over flustered, not being able to handle himself. He's just knows how to step up in these sorts of situations, which is really awesome to see 4 seasons deep in this show.
And it's interesting too. Now, you talking kind of made me realize that Huey never really told his dad about what he was doing with the boys, I'm assuming, right? Like, he just assumed Huey was just, part of the government, working with Newman, is dating Starlight. Well, now he just is now re-meeting his mother again for the first time in many years. And now she's just immediately off the rip getting introduced to Huey's background of being with the boys, i.e. Frenchie here in this specific scene. But that just makes me wonder if she herself is going to get somehow roped into the work that they do with the boys. I doubt it, but I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, if like people are thinking Frenchie's going to die, she could replace him as the chemical expert, like
Wow.
just that. I don't believe that will happen. That's just something that my mind's thinking about right now. I always want to bring it up on the pod. If just why not throw some darts out there? But again, just the mom, what's her role going to be going forward? Is she going to be part of the boys or is she not?
And that is kind of the lingering question. What is her role? Paul, anything else?
I just, for some reason, I remember a scene with Huey's dad running with Huey, and they were like running away from a soup. So I think Huey's dad might have known what he was doing. I didn't know if that rang a bell with you guys at all.
It does ring a bell, but I forget what was going on that his dad was involved.
I don't remember personally.
Well, I mean, A-Train kind of went to their house and was clearly not there as like a celebrity guest. He was trying to like kill Huey at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But like Dave said, I'm not sure Huey completely brought him into the fold. Or maybe he did, and his dad was just like, that's cool. I'm going to eat pizza rolls and just watch my daytime television anyway. You have fun, Huey. But some closure with the dad. Upsetting to see him go because he was a kind of lighthearted character. But like Dave has been saying, what is the mom's role to play? That is the question. Huey has kind of been away from the boys, though, so I'm hoping this kind of bookends that storyline and he can start to do some more stuff with the boys because Lord knows Starlight could use him right about now. She's been going through it. But before we catch up with the boys, why don't we tackle this Vought V52 Expo storyline, which I thought was both hilarious and also a good mechanism to catch up with how Homelander's trip to the bad place has impacted him. And the first scene that we get is obviously the introduction to V52, hosted by Cameron Coleman and The Deep. Big episode for our boy CC. And Homelander's kind of in that movie theater white noise phase, still flashing back to the bad place, obviously traumatic experience. And Sage is trying to like go over stuff with him. And it seems like she's taking note that Homelander is kind of not 100% there like he maybe has been the past couple episodes. Meanwhile, on stage, Deep and CC unveil Vaught's phases 7 through 19, which they promise to go through in exhaustive detail.
Yeah, so funny. They're just, it's like almost exactly the same picture when you saw them, put them side by side. And even A-Train has a line about his movie, or I'm sorry, not his movie, but another movie. And it's, they just reshot the reshoots. So it's officially the most expensive show of all time. So it's got to be good, right?
Right,
So,
it's got to be.
Again, they're just throwing that stuff out there, which is so on topic. It's almost like too much because it's every single like scene, but at the same time, it's just so funny that it's like, whatever, who cares? And in regards to Sage, she's really interesting because she's kind of like doing whatever she wants at this point. Kind of like you were saying, Brian, I don't know if she's taking advantage of the fact that Homelander is not exactly himself and is going through some stuff, so his mind's not there. But like she's just like fucking around with the Deep now, giving the Deep lines about like the peach cognac, like depends on who's watching. And like obviously that like people didn't love that. So she's like setting him up to just like say stupid shit, just the way that she set up Firecracker. And like Firecracker basically said, I'm ready to stab you in the back whenever I get a chance. So I don't see Sage like, unless she has like some master plan behind everything, like I don't see her like really being around that much longer. I feel like she's burning bridges, like,
I
but unless she's like, secretly taking notes and like working for the boys, but like she tried to kill them, so that doesn't make sense. So
I
I
think
don't know.
she's smart enough to know at this point she needs Homelander for whatever her end game is. The brains aren't enough to push it through. She needs Homelander on her side. And up to this point, I think Homelander still trusts her. But like you said, Firecracker already put her on notice. Like, you set me up to get my ass kicked on live TV by Starlight. I'm gonna stab you in the back the first chance I get. And Firecracker has her Lord's Soldier movie coming out, and there's an Ezekiel goodbye video because he obviously just died. Sage, meanwhile, is backstage and is kind of pressing her thumb down on A-Train, like, oh, that tape didn't just run itself out of the studio, right, A-Train? And A-Train's still cool as a cucumber. He's like, okay, but that kind of springboards us into him and Ashley talking. And I was kind of saying this would be pretty cool if A-Train and Ashley were like our duo inside Vought Tower, undermining all of Vought. And it kind of seems like they both reluctantly are turning into that, which is an unexpected alliance that I really like.
Yeah, I'm all in for A-Train recruiting Ashley into the Rebel Alliance. I'm all in for that.
Yeah.
That was don't join me. Don't recruit me into your Rebel Alliance club. Like,
yeah. That was
so
awesome.
good.
That was
Again,
a dick move by her though, or by A-Train, just to drop
yeah.
that on her. Oh yeah.
Because what did he say? He said like, "I'll tell Homelander that you did more than just dump in his toilet." Like, she didn't actually do more than that. It was just implying that he'll just say she did worse shit.
No,
Or
I
did
think
she actually
A-Train's
do
right.
worse?
Behind the scenes, she has done worse. She's covered
Yeah.
up for Maeve, which Homelander, that's enough to make Homelander fry you. So who knows what A-Train has dirt on her, but I'm sure there is dirt to be had on Ashley. And small little maybe throwaway scene that becomes majorly important is Cameron Coleman rejects Ashley when she tries to talk dirty to him and put in those anal beads, I believe it was. And he's like, you know what? Now that you're just a puppet CEO, I'm not really into it. I need a dom that's going to be dominating. Wrong answer, buddy.
Brutal.
Yeah. Poor
Absolutely
Cameron
brutal.
Coleman. I mean, the guy's just trying to do his job, and he's pissing off the wrong people here. Him and the Deep had a phenomenal back and forth from the beginning about just, I'm gonna fuck your wife, and it's like, how about I tell the world about your 8-legged friend in the closet? It's so fucking good. It's so funny, man. I saw a Twitter video. I'll send it to you guys. It was like the Deep being unintentionally funny for 2 minutes, and it was just absolute gold, man. Like, I think the Deep is hilarious, but Cameron Coleman definitely gets his by the end of this episode for dumping Ashley.
Yeah. Yeah, that was brutal. And I mean, it's a shame because he was great and funny in between. But he was all over the place too, like, in between scenes. So I wonder if somebody's gonna step in. Like, I wonder if wow, imagine it's Ashley. That would be messed up if she just somehow takes over Cameron Coleman's.
Becomes a new anchor.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's got to be someone pushing the news for Vought, so that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, the V52 stuff was just, for the most part, just comedy gold. And I think, yeah, like you guys had mentioned, I had the note about the Black Adit with the custom digital product placement.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's so good. And everyone's just like, what are you guys doing?
It's very girls get it done, but yes, now it's Black Adit. In the words of the
Black
Deep,
Adit.
Yes.
people say we go woke. I say get yoked.
Yeah. Money.
Dude is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
And let's not forget training A-Train. We got some more Will Ferrell in there, which was amazing.
I'm sure the crowd was smelling that Oscar too from the screen, man.
Hell yeah.
Just emanating.
So good.
So somewhere in here, we have our first scene with Adam Bork pitching Ryan's first, I guess, debut show or movie, Super School. So obviously like a teenage whatever starring Ryan as a young Soup. Ryan's not 100% about it. And this is maybe one of those scenes where we thought, oh, Homelander's coming around because he's like, Ryan, what do you think? When Adam Bork's like all in on, yeah, we already paid for the set designs and blah, blah, blah. Homelander's like, pump the brakes. What does Ryan think? And Ryan is not about it. And that kind of devolves into Homelander demanding that he give Ryan his wallet and car keys. So
I
some
think
good
this,
parenting there.
and I think this was a good introduction into the flip that becomes later on of him, Ryan specifically, enjoying the position of power that he gets put into. You can kind of see here that when Adam's kind of freaking out and just willingly giving him the keys to his car, his wallet, Ryan is enjoying that. He loves, I think he enjoys using his power to get things that he wants. And I think he's going to develop his own sense of twisted justice like Homelander. Maybe not exactly like Homelander's sense of justice, but another weird iteration that isn't fully, positive. And I think Ryan is definitely feeding into that side of Homelander 100% with how much he's been enjoying seeing Adam, get his butt kicked, and as well as giving him things that are nice. So I hate this for Ryan because we were definitely on that teeter tot of like he could be good if Butcher keeps getting through to him, and now Homelander's in the favor.
So, I mean, that sense of morality is still there for Ryan because as they're drinking milkshakes and Homelander's just like, hey, big picture, what do you think the plan is? Ryan's first response is, this is going to sound dumb to you, but what if I actually helped people? No more fake saves. And Homelander immediately kind of changes that to, why don't we help this poor girl who is being creeped on by Adam Bork? And this is the slap scene where it's like, again, it's good to like teach your son to intervene and be chivalrous to like save this girl who's clearly being creeped on by Adam Bork, but then
Like, is this
Homelander
technically going
him
too
had it.
far though? Is the
Well,
ethic
yes,
thing?
it is. Maybe
Yeah,
one
I mean,
slap would have been okay, but to like beat him into
right?
the
Okay,
dirt is very Homelander like sadistic stuff, and
fair enough.
that's yeah. Ryan put that smirk on his face, like, oh, maybe this is okay if Dad says it's okay. What are you thinking, Paul?
They're doing a good job of walking the line of not like leaving the decision. Is Ryan going to fall to the dark side, or is he gonna, stay with the boys and Butcher's gonna get through to him? They're doing a good job of not like it being obvious because I don't know. Like every time I see him with Butcher, I think he's gonna be a good lad. That scene was amazing. I still think that I like that scene the best so far this season, just Butcher and Ryan in Butcher's apartment, but. That just sounds so wrong. Like in Butcher's apartment, it's like the name Butcher is just
Yeah,
you wouldn't
right.
think it's the best scene. Whatever.
Yeah.
Out of context, that's ridiculous. But he's Ryan is again, I just feel like he's just gonna be the key to like the end of this season and season 5. Everything's gonna kind of revolve around him. So I would love it if he kind of falls to the dark side a little bit, just because I'm not expecting it. It would be good TV, but I want him to remember his mom and help people. And, hopefully he gets somebody that can tell him when he's crossed the line and like right from wrong, unlike Homelander, where, he's right all the time. So
Right.
he's learning how to be right all the time.
For sure. So a couple cameos here before we move on. Tech Knight does show up saying that he's got a new reboot. It's been almost a year since the last one, so time for another reboot. And then more importantly, Kate and Sam are getting their own movie, kind of spin on the Freaky Friday idea. I'm the sorority girl and he's like the introvert nerd. Small little snippet, but Kate and Sam have appeared in The Boys, which is I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
You know what's insane is I think I got announced today that Freaky Friday is getting a reboot, or it's going to be Freaky Friday 2 with Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan again. And I know that itself is an original reboot, but it's just insane that The Boys just happen to like be making fun, like, oh yeah, we're gonna put out like this
Yeah, we're gonna do
completely
it.
done to death storyline, and it gets announced in real life that it's getting made again. So
Right.
great to
I
see
think-
them though. I love that they're putting it into the plot. And we said we weren't getting too many Gen V references, but if you didn't watch Gen V this episode or by this episode, you were probably a little lost.
Mhm. It's
I
still they're still doing good enough job where it's like it still doesn't feel like you totally need to have watched Gen V. Like people who have watched Gen V, it's way cooler understanding that okay, Sam and Kate and the whole twist at the end of how the Godolphin University squad just split up into two groups essentially. But I don't think it's not too glaringly obvious of what you missed on. I feel like it's not too bad.
if I'm remembering correctly, the recap before the episode was a lot of Gen V
Yes, it
scenes,
was.
almost primarily Gen V scenes.
It was.
And not to mention, the Sam and Kate of it all would have helped to watch Gen V. But the entire main plot line is them tracking down the virus, which, if you didn't watch Gen V, you would have been completely in the dark about. But it's easy enough to jump on and be like, oh, some Vought people
Yeah.
developed a virus. Okay, I'm caught up to speed.
The
But
last thing the
go ahead.
last thing I'll say for the V-52 stuff is it just feels like Team Homelander, the Seven. I wouldn't even really call it the Seven as a group just because some of them are clearly faltering in their beliefs. But in terms of like Team Homelander having Sage, and now potentially Ryan committing to their side, I feel like their team is just getting so overpowered where the boys are facing nothing but collapse recently. I really do feel like if A Train steps up, like that will be a huge swing of momentum for like the boys' side,
Well, yeah,
Because I think Kate and Sam are obviously also they're obviously also declare themselves pro Homelanders. So it's like we have 6 off the bat, just incredibly overpowered soups on one team versus the boys who are just in complete shambles mentally and internally.
if Kate works on Homelander, Kate is the most important, strongest soup on the planet.
Yeah, she's one of those powers where it's like, if she gets a hold of you, I don't know if Homelander's fighting her off mentally that long.
But I agree. And kind of the only saving grace is that Newman is non-committal to a side. So she's kind of a free agent playing both sides of the fence. And then there is Marie, too, who, if she can become as strong as Newman, she's a
Right.
good guy at her heart. So, the good guy still got a couple punches.
Yeah.
But let's wrap up this storyline with kind of the classic Homelander scene. The Seven is all kind of gathered at the Seven round table, whatever you want to call it, plus Kate and Sam too. So it's kind of the Homelander HQ, if you will. And they finally found where the leak came from, and Ashley had successfully pinned it on Cameron Coleman after A Train asked her to get him out of it or get Sage off his back. And boy, they are just ready to beat the crap out of Cameron Coleman. But Homelander has kind of his whole monologue. We have to save America, save the world for our kids. We'll have to do some violent, corrupt things. You'll no longer be celebrities, but you will be wrathful gods. So, that's pretty much the rhetoric we've become familiar with.
Firecracker was loving it. She was nodding along like she was at church agreeing with the pastor. She was like, hell yeah, I'm ready to become a revengeful, wrathful god. And she was the first one to, punch Cameron. So she was 100% like, she even had that line a couple episodes ago where she was like, I'll do whatever you need, Homelander, anything. So she's already like ready to prove herself. So maybe she was just kind of faking it, but either way,
this was probably an easy way to prove herself. I mean, just go in and just beat this innocent man.
Hell yeah. And good on Ashley for cooking that up and pinning it, saying that he made phone calls to, MM. But
A Train lives to tell another tale. That's what I've gathered from it.
Crazy.
I'm glad that may have gotten himself out of suspicion for the immediate future. One thing that I did notice, Sage had like a unicorn diary and was showing it to Tech Knight in this scene. And Tech Knight was like, oh, damn, is that real? Or something like that. And it was very, it was brief. And then Homelander comes in and steals the scene. Something was going on there.
Interesting. I did not catch that. I'm glad you did.
I think A Train kind of like saw that going down because he's like being super on edge, thinking that she knows, because she does know. So Yeah, that would be nuts if that came back into play.
He's got
I
like
also-
really good detective skills, right? Is that
Yeah, he's like
what it
Sherlock
is?
Holmes on a million.
Okay. Which now I'm thinking is also like, I guess Sage is still better. Like her power would still be better to have, I guess. Because she does the same, like she does the Tech Knight thing basically to Homelander. And now that I'm thinking about it in episode, whatever that was.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point. They
either
probably
way,
had crazy conversations, just two insane
Yeah,
lines.
true that.
but I think Sage is, from what we know from that scene with Homelander, that as of right now, it just seems like that she's just playing humans for these like social experiments. Just that's kind of what Homelander kind of pitched to her in that first meeting, is that you can play with the people and you can like make them do what you want and you can run these experiments and see how it ends up. And I think that's mainly what her goal is. I don't know if I buy it as her like ultimate goal as of right now, but I definitely, it's tough to see where Sage is at, especially after how she's been like noticing Homelander's like departure into madness, essentially.
Yeah, she almost strikes me as, I guess the word is a nihilist. Like nothing matters. I'm just gonna do it because I can, and
Right.
I'm sure self-preservation is her only goal, but like she just doesn't really seem to care about anything. So, but that's really our Vought storyline. I think it progressed a lot of things, and it was nice to see Kate, Sam, and maybe even Tech Knight again. But any lasting comments on that storyline?
I think I'm good for that one.
Sweet. So why don't we catch up with the boys? We start off with Starlight, who goes over to Starlight House, and the teamers have clearly gotten there, graffitied, and ransacked the entire building. So Starlight House is no more at this moment in time. And then we also catch up with MM and Monique. Janine has gotten kicked out of school, or not expelled, suspended from
Suspended.
school for fighting some dude who was trying to say Homelander's the best. But now Janine is no longer with Todd, but she's gone too far the MM route and said, well, you solve all your problems by just fighting people, Dad. And it's like, you're not supposed to say that, honey. But yes, you're absolutely right. I do.
Yeah.
So bad parenting, but that's definitely like a tertiary storyline. We get Butcher catching up with Joe Kessler, who they're exchanging pictures of something. It almost looked like the Willow Grove or whatever the
the
bad
school.
soup house is.
Yeah.
Did
The
you guys
woods.
know exactly what those
woods.
pictures were?
It seemed like the woods, just security
Okay.
camera of the kids, with the virus and everything, because that's what they were talking about.
Gotcha.
And
That's what I
yeah.
think too.
Cool. Well, he correctly points out that the boys are kind of in a shambles right now and says, hey, maybe you and I should just do the job ourselves. Butcher pushes back on him, but we'll catch up with Kessler later. And that brings us to the Flatiron building, where Starlight is asking Frenchie about Colin because Colin kind of ghosted her with the Starlight out stuff. And Frenchie is just doing coke in the middle of the day. So that's where his head's at. And like Kessler said, they're in a shambles right now. Butcher arrives and they're immediately like, Butcher, what the hell? Starlight is taking the heat for killing Ezekiel, even though she has an alibi. Like, we know it was you, but how did you do it? And he has plausible deniability because he's like, honestly, I blacked out. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. And that's insane that he's just like, don't worry about it, though. I got something else to talk about. He has no concern for it right now, I guess, because he knows he only has a little time. But this felt like a classic Butcher app with like his lines preaching to the boys. We know we got like a little later down the road, a little bit more of his evil side poking out. But still, I felt like he had, classic lines as always. But he was just so good and he was so central throughout the entire episode. So
I just hate when men just can't be a little emotional for once. Why can't Butcher just spill the beans, let everyone know he's just got this fucking, well, I guess he doesn't know it's a parasite that's in him. He doesn't really know actually anything about it, but he's got to lay it out on the line. Like, something's going on with me. I need some help. But of course, Butcher doesn't want to be that guy that wants to reach out for help. And it's painful. It's tearing away him from our group. And it's causing so much chaos all around.
A fantastic line to Starlight. I'd call you a cunt, but you don't have the depth or the warmth. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
So, and he brings them the proposition. This is the first time I think the rest of the boys have heard about the virus, but he fills them in. The people at God U cooked up a virus, but Newman beat us to the punch. So now we have to steal the virus from Newman and then we can use it against her. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to need one presidential pardon. And that brings us to the jailhouse where we see none other but Stan Edgar. He's one of my favorite characters in The Boys.
Yeah, I mean, he's just
And
one of the best actors.
Yeah, that's what it is. But he
absolutely
just so good.
Yeah, and they even reference it. Like, he's so cool in every scene. And when he's walking to the car coming out of the jail, and he's like, you got to give it to him, man. He can wear the hell out of that suit. So it's just known that he's just a boss. And he's so funny. He's like, do you have a towel that I could put down on my seat before I get in your van? So it's so funny seeing his high class mind just being forced to work with these like debauchery, like having guys, the boys. And even as a line later, he's like, I have no idea how you guys have stayed alive this entire time. You guys are ridiculous.
Stan Edgar is just one of those people that when he pops up on the screen, you're just going to inch your way a little closer to the edge of the seat, perk your ears up a little bit more because you know that the scene's going to be important. And that's exactly what it was. He finds out that his granddaughter is now infected with compound, or infected if that's the right word, but now has compound V running through her blood. And that's kind of where Butcher is able to leverage that information into getting Stan Edgar to join up with them to help them locate where some of this virus can be found.
And that was noteworthy. He was still not going to betray Newman until Zoe was brought up. He was like, hey, I raised her to be ruthless, to betray me, essentially. I'm not going to betray her now. But yes, Zoe did kind of push him in the boys' direction. Fast forward to the boys and Edgar arriving. I guess it just sounded like one of Newman's various properties where Edgar said if she has something to hide, she would be hiding it here on this farm. And they follow an ominous trail of blood into the basement laboratory. Edgar seems like, even I had no clue this stuff was going on. Butcher sees this bunny hooked up to Temp V and is like, all right, little buddy, I can kind of relate to you. Why don't you just hop away here? And that
boy,
just
can he really relate to the bunny. He can really relate.
Goodness.
I think this whole property was Stan Edgar's, but when he went to jail, she took over. She jumps in and puts all this like scientific stuff in there. So that's why he was like, what did you do to my farm? Like, this was my happy place and you destroyed it.
Yeah. But I was not expecting Newman to arrive, but she immediately says, you don't think I would be aware the second you stepped out of that jail that you were out of jail? Like, yes, I know exactly where you are and what you're up to.
She knows how to make a freaking entrance, and that aura she just gives up. Yeah, when everyone's nose is bleeding. Yeah, like you said, I wasn't expecting her to show up, and they start getting nosebleeds, and it didn't process quick enough in that like second reveal. But I'm like, why are their noses bleeding? And then Newman just struts on through. I'm like, dude, this character Newman is such a fucking badass, man. She can literally have just killed all of them in seconds. And of course, Starlight's having. Do we think, okay, I guess I'm just going to jump the gun a little bit. Do we think Starlight is lacking in abilities because there is no like electricity around, or do you think she's having like a mental block of her powers like Peter Parker had in like, what was it? Spider-Man 2 when he can't use his powers because he's like so focused on Mary Jane or whatever.
Far From Home, his Spidey tingle or Peter tingle.
Well, I'm thinking about not Far From Home. I'm thinking about like OG Spider-Man movies.
But I don't think it's a lack of electricity. So it's either a mental block or Newman in some way, shape, or form can suppress Starlight's powers, which would be not good for everybody.
That's what I also was thinking too, is that it was also Newman blocking her powers. Because she tries to do it. Starlight tries to activate her powers. And like Newman sees that she can't, but also is like grinning at the same time as if like, oh, I got you now. Like you're in the palm of my hand kind of thing. But I don't
I
know.
think she just recognized that she couldn't use her powers there, and then she brings up the conversation later. She was like, "Hey, I saw you're having some, projectile dysfunction." So I don't think
Yeah,
she would do that if she was blocking it. I think she just saw
true.
and recognized as a soup that, yeah, Starlight is a little messed up right now, and it's maybe from like lack of confidence or even
Yeah.
well-being of knowing who you are because of everything
Mhm.
that's going on. But I mean, or maybe she doesn't even, I don't know. It could be a million different mental blocks in her
Mhm.
head, but I do think it is a mental block. And yeah, she just goes around punching everybody all of a sudden. So her strength is still
Yeah, that
there.
was
Yeah.
Starlight unfortunately has not been having a great season,
I
and
know.
when she rocks Newman for just commenting, it's like, do you even know who Annie January is anymore? It's like, yes, she's like being a little sassy, but I don't think that quote and was
Yeah.
enough to merit you just
I mean,
sucker punching her.
Newman's
close to
overdue for a
home.
Newman's overdue for a punch in the face.
I
I
think
will
I
agree
think
with that.
Starlight or Annie, it literally hit so close to home, and it was so spot on that Annie was like, "Screw you," and Reflex just punched her. But
Yeah,
anyway,
she's got to
so
stop using her
wh-
fists.
while we're on Newman, real quick question for you guys: do you think, like this episode, she popped one head of the chickens, and that was it? She didn't do any rest
Yeah,
of the
I
chickens or any
had
sheep.
the same note.
Do you think she has like a cooldown period where after she pops one, she can't like pop another one for a certain amount of time? Or maybe it like causes strain on her eyes or something like that? Because
My my only counter is in season 2, whatever it was, the courtroom scene where she just
they just
pop,
did a
pop, pop, pop,
million.
pop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way. No way. No way. Okay. So I
But
guess put that up to
But, like,
makeup and
she
CGI
does
that they didn't want
always
to do
have
that.
to have like, it does seem like they've been emphasizing the eye drops a lot, so maybe it is a matter of something to do with, like, keeping her eyes open, and she just, like, can't blink. I don't know. Maybe she has to be it was too hard to track the chickens. I wrote the same thing down. I was like,
it
"Why
was
does
weird.
Newman not just pop everyone's heads, all the animals' heads in that moment?" So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think there's got to be a negative to her power because she can't just go around just popping heads, being invulnerable at all times. That would just make her probably the actual strongest character. There's got to be a weak point to her power. So maybe it is a cooldown time, but something to do with blinking. I don't know. I only think that because there's a My Hero Academia character whose ability is to nullify others people's powers, but he has to be looking at them the whole time and he
Mhm.
can't blink. And if you blinks, then their powers get reactivated. So it's like he has to pop in eye drops all the time to make sure he doesn't have to blink.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it's
Isn't it
kind of
like
something
their
like that.
teacher season 1?
Yeah, it's like one of the
Yeah.
OG teachers. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
there's something to that. Like maybe y- we've seen that polarity. Every time he uses his power, he's basically making his disease worse and worse.
yeah.
So maybe there's something like there was enough strain on her eyes that, after so many pops, like she only has so many left. So she
And
doesn't
she
want to
did
go
have to,
around.
and she did come into the science lab kind of using her powers a little bit to some extent too
Yeah, she
by
was
giving
hitting
everyone
all of them
nosebleeds.
a little
Yeah,
bit.
so
So, and
definitely something
interesting.
to think about.
Well, for the boys' sake, we better hope that she has some sort of a weakness to her powers because to be able to use that uninhibited would be
Yeah.
bad news bears. Also, I almost didn't like to see her so pathetically frantic for this Samir guy. Like, where's Samir? Is Samir okay? It's like, girl, get over this guy. Like, come on. Maybe I don't have a heart, but I like Newman being just like a big baddie. I don't like her
Mm,
fawning over some scientist.
The father of her daughter.
Yeah, but
When did
well,
he
there's
get
a lot of dynamics at play. She's got
well,
tentacle mouth. Do I
I
really
honestly
like
blanked.
Zoe that much anymore? I don't know. It was just more the she drops the I'm the head popper act and was just like, where is he? I'm so worried for Samir. It's like
And
keep
plus, I
the
mean,
cards a little close to your chest.
plus as a character, I honestly had no idea who Samir was. Like, was he from Gen V? When was this guy even introduced?
I think this episode, unless Paul.
Yeah, so I
Uh,
think that unless I'm mistaken, I'm just saying, like, I understand your frustration with it, I guess, because we have been shown to see Newman as like a just kind of like a cold-blooded, ruthless person and we never saw her spending time with her husband or at least like the father of her child, and there was never any dynamic there. And so to see her this worried over it did feel a little out of character, but I don't know. I definitely did not recognize this. I thought he was maybe in Gen V for a second, but I did not know who this guy was.
Yeah, I thought her one weakness was like her daughter. And so this kind of did feel like it's coming out of nowhere, unless like we're misremembering and he was in something before. But like
I
even
feel like
Gen
his
V,
face looked a
that
little familiar, but I don't know.
that doctor in Gen V, like
Yeah, that was not him.
his head got popped by Newman at the end. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It did feel a little weird, but she was freaking out when they couldn't find him, and I 100% thought he was gone.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know about
Same.
you guys.
Great end scene, and also it's good for the boys that she is so pathetically in love with this guy. I said pathetically in love. Trying to use a phrase. Nothing about this girl is pathetic. She's a bad bitch, but this is leverage. If they have
Yeah,
him still alive, locked up, that is good leverage for the boys over Newman. So
100%.
a couple things happen. I mean, Edgar and Newman have their one-on-one where tensions are still high and they're kind of just like, you betrayed me, but you would have sold us out and you were just using me the whole time. That's kind of been Edgar and Newman's whole shtick. Butcher immediately says, yo, if we make a play for the virus, you're going to blind Newman. That's the only plan they have against Newman. And if her powers aren't at 100%, they would have gotten absolutely rocked by Newman. So I'm glad it didn't come to that. And then they investigate the barn and find the soup chickens. And Newman also reveals that her and Butcher made a deal. So she's like, don't be all goody to this guy. He tried to make a deal with me. And he's like, well, I didn't follow through with it. I'm not all that bad. He should have said I sent her a picture of my asshole, but
I think he had a point. He didn't go through with it. He was, but they hate him. The chicken shit was weird. Like that just started jumping through bodies. It was funny, but as soon as those two like bodyguards or whatever in the suits, the man and woman walked through into the barn, I was like, fodder.
Oh,
You're dead.
yeah.
You're
Because they
100%
didn't show
dead.
them on screen really that much until they walk through the barn, and it's just like,
Yeah. That they don't show your face like that unless you have a scene where you're about to die coming up. If you're one of the extras, they do that all the time. So it was like obvious. As soon as I saw them and they stepped in the barn, I'm just like, all right, here comes some gore. This guy's dead. This woman's dead. And sure enough, they
still caught me
died.
lacking, man. I pooped a little bit.
Reminded me of Yellow Jackets season 2 when they just told us there were like 5 other girls that had 0 screen time all of season 1, even though there was 15 girls stranded. It's like, oh yeah, and
we have these
introduced
3 other
these
characters.
5 girls that just weren't relevant at all and had nothing important. It's like, okay, come on, guys. But
it was funny though.
fodder.
I thought it was funny though, seeing like Frenchie's reaction, like fuck V'd up chickens. They're shooting them with bullets and they're just like getting bounced off. Like that was kind of funny. Like I thought that was great. But yeah,
and
I think
when Samir is saying, well, it started, we V'd up this hamster, and Frenchie's like, oh, that was your first mistake, giving the hamster compound V. Shout out to their excursion back to Russia when they saw the V'd up hamster.
Oh, so funny.
And
apparently it got
full
into
circles this show, man. It's so good.
It got into the groundwater is what they said. And like when the hamster went crazy to V, and that's kind of how everything got affected.
I feel like that's a pretty big problem that should not just get left unchecked.
Yeah, you would think like people in the town might be drinking that water, but it was like a large property farm, so maybe it was just isolated there. Who knows?
Yeah, Newman would have an isolated place for a reason, and so I can buy it. But if they do want to make this a plot point later on, I would be interested for sure. Like, oh, Newman's house is now like ground zero for this like virus, so could be interesting. But
to jump the gun a little bit, the sheep come out and they're hiding in the barn, and that's where Samir is, right? And that's where Newman and Samir reunite. And this guy's dead though. I thought it was so ridiculous, Samir's reaction to is the virus gone or destroyed? Yeah. except this one right here. It's like, no, you would. There's no way you would ever like do that, like or
You wouldn't
respond
say.
like
You would
that.
just say no.
This is the only one left. Yeah, like what the hell? I thought that
You
was
would
like
pull her. Yes, 100%.
I that is the one thing where I was like, this show is really good at like, the dialogue's not like realistic, but it's good and back and forth, and that just seemed to be drama for drama's sake. Like it was like, no way to be like, oh, it's all gone, except this one. It just seemed a little ridiculous.
We
Well,
have, like we said, kind of Newman and Starlight talk about the dual identity thing. And if I'm being honest, Newman was making good points and Annie just couldn't handle it right then and there. Butcher catching up with the now dead bunny and then sees the tentacles like pop out of its stomach. He's just like, crap, that's going to happen to me. That can't feel good. And then we have Starlight and Frenchie actually talking about their faith. And this is kind of where Frenchie's story is going. He's like, yes, I mean, I do want to believe, but there's so much like evil and badness in the world. And like forgiveness is a huge part of any religion, of faith. And I believe in that, but not necessarily being forgiven. There are some things that can't be forgiven and they deserve eternal damnation. And it's one scene at the end, but Frenchie ends this episode by turning himself into the police, which I get it. I don't know. He's been dealing with his past demons for 4 seasons now, so I get it.
Yeah. At the same time, he has been dealing with this for so long. It's almost seems like, he faces it and then gets past it and he's like, oh, I'm a monster. And he's like, no, I'm not. So it's been going back and forth, but I guess it has been coming to a head at this point. And he even says, I haven't told Kimiko because, I'm terrified that she'll hate me. And I'm also terrified that she won't care and she'll accept me. So I
That
feel
was a
like
great response, I thought, because
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
questioning that. Like, of course, Kimiko would accept you. Like, why are you even saying this? And then he follows it up by saying exactly what you said, that I'm worried that she would accept me for that. And I think that
Yeah.
was a beautiful quote.
And he's basically like, I need punishment for everything that I've done. And that's, I guess, why he's just going in and trying to morally
Still-
make the right decision and turn himself in. But yeah, I like love this Frenchie monologue here when talking to Starlight. I was great. And I love Frenchie. And whenever he has scenes, it's phenomenal. But with him and the Collins stuff, I just, for some reason, it wasn't hitting. It was like misplaced. So when he was just doing, the back and forth with Starlight, I was like, this is I don't know, it just seems like the Frenchie that we know and love.
I just hope, again, we said it last episode, I just hope there's him and Colin, there should just be no chance of them having a budding relationship. I just think at this point that plot line should be dead. And I get if Colin was the kind of springboard for Frenchie to go through this kind of trauma and past and kind of make up for it by like and move his story that way. I get it. But if they end up together, I'm going to be so pissed. I just feel like there should just be no comeback from this personally.
Agreed. So back to the farm. They encounter the beat up bull. Butcher says, nice and slow. Off we fuck. And then the sheep come flying in. So they have to take refuge in the nearby barn, which is where they find Samir. The bombshell that Samir is Zoe's dad and previously Edgar's top man at Vought R&D.
Before he deflowered his precious daughter. But she was already 20, so
I was already
deflowered.
plenty deflowered.
Yeah, that was.
And then it goes to Stan Edgar real quick, and he's like, "Really? Oh, God." He did get a little flustered there.
Yeah.
One more dose of the virus left, and Newman and Butcher are quick to say, no, we can't use it as bait to kill all the animals. It's too valuable. And then MM just comes in, lays down the hammer, and puts everybody in their place. Annie, you can't just go punching everybody when you're upset. Newman, do you really want to risk Zoe growing up in a group home without her mom by making her run for it and taking your chances? And Butcher, you can't just throw me to the wolves anymore. My girl needs a dad. You're not a monster. You are a motherfucker, but a motherfucker with a heart.
Yep.
So the moral compass has been directed, and Samir injects the now dead scientist with the virus and they throw it out to the animals.
I think Butcher being such an asshole here is just a direct correlation after what he saw with the bunny rabbit, just because I think that was a direct visualization of how he knows his life is going to end, and he knows how he's been feeling recently is not obviously getting any better. So I think he's really feeling the pressures of like, I need to make a move to do something with my life now before it gets too late. And that's why he was willing to just shell out everyone, because I don't think he was mostly thinking of himself in the sense that if I die, that's okay because I'm going to die anyway. I don't think he was really thinking about like, okay, what if, yeah, MM dies and then Janine doesn't have a father to grow up with. Like, I think he's only closed off in his mind, especially after seeing the rabbit just go through the parasite that he is dealing with. But MM man he's a great leader. I hate seeing him and Butcher be at each other's throats like this because I think they're just such a dynamic duo at the end of the day. But fuck, man, Butcher is definitely losing that little bit of a heart that he has left. And it's because, again, that he knows that his timer is literally probably it could stop at any moment.
Yeah, no, that's a good point because he didn't even just kill the rabbit and the parasite. He like stepped on it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So he was thinking like, oh shit, that is going to be me. But yeah, I mean, like you guys already said it. Classic MM, just being the dad to everybody, schooling them.
Should be father's milk.
Yeah, okay. Moving on. Just sweep that one under the rug. So, I mean, it's kind of dumb because after the sheep take the bait, the sheep then break into the barn. So they have to run away anyway, but then the sheep just start dropping like flies, which maybe some insight into how quickly that virus takes effect on soups. It didn't seem that potent back at God U, so maybe it got more developed. I don't know. They also still dropped that the virus is not ready to take down Homelander just yet. It hasn't reached that point of potency, but I thought that was kind of dumb that they had the sheep break in anyway, but they do get away. The feds come to the farm and say, hey, Newman, we couldn't find Samir because he just kind of ran off in a different direction, but they do have his leg, which obviously the end reveals that Butcher took care of Samir and came doubled back with Kessler and wants Samir to make more of the virus, which I'm not even sure if he's capable of doing because Gen V told us Dr. Cardoso was the mastermind behind it and the only one that knew how to replicate it, but they seem to think that the top vault R&D guy is up to the task.
And he's been experimenting with it already, so he's like the most knowledgeable of it, I guess. Do you think it makes sense? I have no idea if this makes sense or not, but like the guy who was dead, they injected the needle into him. If his heart isn't pumping, like, is that even going all throughout his body, or is that just staying in one spot? And then, like,
I feel like that's
they're
a
like,
beautiful question for B Toms to answer.
Yeah,
maybe it could be just like it could legitimately just be gravity making its way through, like it just forces its way throughout the body.
With my biology undergrad knowledge, which is minimal at best, I would say no. There is nothing that would disperse that injection throughout the body, but I'm willing to overlook that one. The physics
and
of that.
also if they, I don't know. Yeah,
just seems
they
like
put
such
it
a
in the
weird
belly,
plan.
right? They put it in the belly. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
I mean, they just like, oh, obviously we injected in this guy and feed it to everybody else, and I was like, that wasn't obvious to me at all. But I don't know. I was just like, would all the sheep really like get this
There were
virus?
definitely some gray areas.
But
the
whatever.
funniest part is when MM proposed the idea and said, and the dead guy fucks up the sheep. And Frenchie's like, he is in no condition to be fucking any sheep. And Edgar, I think, is like, he wouldn't actually have sex with the sheep, man. He would infect them. Frenchie's like, oh, okay.
Lost in translation thing. I absolutely love it. It's beautiful.
That was so funny.
So the other loose thread, I suppose, is that Edgar gets shipped off to jail again because the deal was virus for your release and we didn't get the virus, so you're going back to jail. But Newman bails him out and pops the head of his driver. So we didn't see her release him, but presumably she is going to release Edgar.
Mhm.
Dangerous.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't know how soon we're going to see Edgar again, to be honest. Like, I feel like we won't see him again this season. It's very
would
possible.
MM just like get like reprimanded and fired because he got him out of jail and then just loses him? Like the CAA is not going to care about that. I don't know. Seems a little weird. And it seems also weird there was a prison transport with one dude. Whatever. Maybe they didn't show Newman killing all the other drivers.
I'm also a little bit skeptical. It seems like they have the feds pretty involved in a lot of this stuff. Like, there would be people that would be able to connect the dots that Newman is the head popper if they looked into it deeply enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, Edgar went missing and the head popper was here. Well, who do we know is at this farm area? Newman was there, and all the boys who we know aren't soups. I don't know. That's
Yeah, I think
a couple of
that's a good
nitpicks
point.
for this episode.
I think all of this taking place on Newman's farm, I hope it would bring out some kind of political discourse for Newman. Like, some of this gets leaked somehow. Like, I just think this is too big of a thing for Newman to just brush aside. Like, we have dead bodies and dead V'd up animals all over the compound. Like, I think something's got to happen here with this information. You're right. I didn't really think about the repercussions, but there certainly should be. And again, we brought it up, like, the whole water in this area is now infected with V. So,
while we're nitpicking, do you think they would see that leg that they recovered of Samir and be like, "That is a clean axe slice"?
I was
down
saying
the
the same
leg
thing. Trust me. I think
and
there was a
through the
lot of
bone.
gray areas in this episode, specifically with that. Like, it was, I can't imagine Butcher just. Yeah, I think it's a clean. It looked like it was a clean slice, and they were just like,
meaning like a sheep didn't tear it off, like
Yeah.
someone.
Right, exactly.
I understand.
yeah.
Well,
Like
bad
that, and then
CIA
Newman,
agents, I guess.
and then Newman not head popping every animal that we've seen so far. It's just like there's a lot of gray. Overall, still a phenomenal episode, but we're treading some boundaries here.
Now that you're bringing up her lack of head popping everything in sight, I hope that that is a weakness of her ability and that they kind of say, yeah, she was using it too much, so she couldn't just keep using it. But I don't know. I do not know.
I understand they needed like suspense and pressure, and that's why what the stupid sheep were supposed to be. But I was like, you guys are a bunch of soups. You guys are a bunch of killers. Like, I feel like you should be able to take out wild animals. I digress. Still really good episode. Wild Butcher character path diverging. Like, I don't know where he's going. It's almost like he's relapsing into being that crazy butcher. So I loved it. I think that was the biggest surprise and the best part of the episode for me. It was Butcher actually going back and being dark and realizing he can't be the good guy. He has to go and be the
Says the man whose favorite scene this season is the
being
Ryan
the
and
good
Butcher
guy.
heart to heart.
I know. It's crazy. He's all over the place.
The
So-
duality
when you
of Butcher.
You see that wicked smile to end the episode, you know the old Butcher's back. So we'll see.
I miss the old Butcher personally.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Paul. It was nice to kind of see him round back into form, but I don't know. We are over the 1 hour mark, so that's our episode. Any last thoughts, guys?
We have what, 6, 7, 8 left? 6,
3
7,
more.
8, 3 left.
That's so
I don't know.
annoying.
I don't know what's gonna happen, man. Shit's gonna just start hitting the fan, man. Homelander is about to snap any moment. I love this show though. Definitely watching the next one tonight.
Homelander's speech, it seems like he's ready to start a genocide and just kill humans and become the gods that he was talking about. So I don't know how much it's going to escalate, but I could see the end of this season being like, holy shit, like, oh my God moments.
We are certainly getting closer to that tipping point. But that's going to do it for our coverage of episode 5. As always, if you like what you heard, give Bingetown TV a follow on Twitter and Instagram. Visit us on bingetowntv.com and subscribe to our show on Spotify, YouTube, the Apple Podcast app, or wherever else you may find your podcast. Once again, we are Bingetown TV. And thanks for listening.